High Inquisitor Vax of the Keptari Hegemony stepped through the breach, expecting the silence of a grave. The human vessel, the Iron Patch, was a 200-year-old relic of primitive steel, a floating fossil that should have lost atmospheres centuries ago. Instead, Vax was hit by a wall of smells: wet earth, ozone, and something the humans called bacon. Diagnostic, Vax clicked into his comms. The atmosphere is breathable, but it shouldn't be. The life support registers as a closed-loop terrarium, integrated with salvaged Qatari CO2 scrubbers. They've wired our technology into their dirt, Commander. It's a biological heresy. He moved deeper into the hall. The walls were a nightmare of space orc engineering. Where there should have been elegant conduit, there was copper wiring held in place by a silver sticky fabric. Vax touched it. His glove stuck. They call it duct tape. A voice crackled over the ship's intercom, a sound produced by a speaker that clearly belonged to a high-end luxury cruiser, jury-rigged into a bulkhead of rusted iron. And I wouldn't touch that if I were you, buddy. That tape is the only thing keeping the artificial gravity from inverted pinching your internal organs. Vax froze. He looked up to see a human leaning against a jagged doorway. The creature wasn't in a suit. He was wearing a grease-stained tank top and holding a wrench that looked heavy enough to crack a moon. "You're alive?" Vax stammered. The human grinned, a display of predatory bone. "Alive? Pal, we're just getting started. Welcome to the patch. Mind the gap. The floor in Sector 4 is mostly suggestion at this point." High Inquisitor Vax followed the human, whose name was simply Miller, deeper into the Iron Patch. Vax tried not to let his primary ocular sensors twitch. He had seen the Grand Spire of Kethar, a marvel of anti-gravity crystal, but this ship was an affront to the very laws of physics. "How is the core stable?" Vax asked, his translation device struggling with the ship's ambient hum. "I detect a gravitational singularity, but your containment field is fluctuating." Miller didn't look back. Stable is a strong word. I like to say it's cooperative. We found a Kethari wreckage about 50 years back. Your engine was fine, but the casing was shot. So, we stuck it inside an old industrial boiler and packed the gaps with lead wool and magnetic resonant fluid. Vax stopped dead. "You put a black hole in a water heater?" "Hey, it's a high-pressure boiler," Miller corrected, patting a wall that vibrated with a terrifying rhythmic thrum. "The trick isn't stopping the radiation, it's making sure the radiation has somewhere to go." We piped the excess heat through the floorboards. Best heated floors in the quadrant. They reached the engine room. It was a cathedral of human spite. The singularity hung in the air, glowing with an angry violet light, but it was surrounded by a cage of mismatched bronze pipes and flickering holographic displays salvaged from at least 4 different civilizations. "This is impossible," Max whispered. "The math, the systemic ecological roots of this technology don't exist. Math is just a suggestion when you're cold and out of fuel, buddy," Miller said, pulling a pouch of tobacco from his grease-stained pocket. "We didn't have time to build it right. We just had to build it now." Miller led Vax into a cramped hub where the air hummed with a different, more organic frequency. Here, the silver duct tape was replaced by translucent tubes, pulsing with a rhythmic, pale blue light. "Miller," Vax clicked, his sensor scanning a terminal that appeared to be made of a hollowed-out Kethari navigation console and a wooden dining chair. "I am detecting biological signatures originating from the ship's primary data bus. It is impossible. You are running a digital-to-organic interface." Miller sat in the chair, his movements stiff. He rolled up his sleeve, revealing a forearm that made Vax's primary ocular sensors go wide. It wasn't just a scar. It was a series of copper-threaded ports embedded directly into the muscle and bone. "The patch is old, buddy," Miller said, his southern drawl slowing down, becoming heavy with a strange kind of reverence. "Computer parts don't last 2 centuries. We ran out of silicon boards during the Great Drift. So, we had to get creative. The ship's memory? That's mostly stored in a vat of bioslurry we keep in the basement. And the interface? Well, a human brain is the most complex processor in the known universe. Seems a waste not to use it. Bax recoiled. You? You are part of the vessel? This is a biological hazard. Nah, Miller chuckled, a dry, raspy sound. It's a partnership. The ship keeps the air moving, and I remember the flight paths. We don't just fly the patch, we feel her. When a thruster misfires, I get a headache. When the shields take a hit, I feel the sting. He pled the wire from the terminal directly into his arm. The ship's lights flickered in sync with his heartbeat. Vax realized with a cold shudder that he wasn't standing inside machine anymore. He was standing inside a living, breathing paradox of human spite and ingenuity. The internal lights of the iron patch didn't just flicker. They turned a violent, bleeding red. Miller's head snapped back, his eyes rolling into his skull for a split second before refocusing with a terrifying, artificial clarity. Company's here. Miller grunted, his southern drawl sharpening like a whetted blade. 3 Qatari interceptors just dropped out of warp. They're painting us with target locks. Vax scrambled to a viewport. Outside, the sleek, iridescent hulls of the Hegemony ships shimmered like jewels against the black. They were masterpieces of systemic, flawless engineering. Compared to them, the iron patch looked like a heap of industrial refuse. "They have come to sanitize the heresy," Vax whispered, his voice trembling. "They will not board us, Miller. They will dismantle this ship atom by atom to ensure our technology isn't contaminated by your duct tape and bioslurry." Miller stood up, the copper wire still plugged into his arm. He didn't look scared, he looked annoyed, like a man interrupted while fixing a leaky faucet. He limped over to a console that was held together by a prayer in a literal bungee cord. "They want to play rules of engagement?" Miller spat, his thumb hovering over a mismatched red button. "They don't realize the patch doesn't follow the rules. She's got 3 different types of engines and a gravity drive that's technically a localized seizure in space-time. If they try to pull us in with a tractor beam, they aren't going to catch a ship. They're going to catch a headache that'll turn their crews inside out." He slammed the button. The ship groaned, a deep metallic scream of protesting steel. "Brace yourself, Inquisitor," Miller growled. "We're about to show your boys why you never try to sanitize a Deathworlders' house." The Qatari interceptors fired, 3 beams of pure, coherent light, perfectly engineered to slice through standard titanium hulls, struck the iron patch. Vax braced for the end, but instead of the ship shattering, the hull hummed a low, discordant note. "The hell was that?" Miller shouted over the roar of the boiler engine. "Hey, Patch, redirect the thermal bleed to the secondary radiator, the one we made out of the old vending machine." Vax watched the internal sensors in disbelief. The human ship hadn't absorbed the hit. It had digested it. Because the hull was a patchwork of non-conductive steel and hyperconductive alien polymers, the energy of the beams was being scattered across the ship like water on a hot skillet. "Your beams are too clean, buddy." Miller laughed, his fingers dancing across a keyboard that was missing several keys. "Our hull is so messy that the energy doesn't know where to go. It just gets lost in the junk." The iron patch didn't fire back with lasers. Instead, a hatch opened on the ventral side, and a series of heavy, metallic cylinders were launched into the path of the oncoming interceptors. "Are those kinetic slugs?" Vax asked. "Nah," Miller said, his southern drawl dripping with a dark, humorous spite. "Those are canisters of industrial-grade magnetic filings mixed with pressurized grease. We call it the blackout bouquet. Your ships are built for vacuum and light. They aren't built for getting sticky." The canisters detonated. A cloud of thick, black sludge and magnetized dust coated the elegant crystalline hulls of the Qatari ships. Their sensors went blind. Their flawless systems began to seize as the filings were sucked into their delicate thruster intakes. The Qatari flagship, blinded by the blackout bouquet, didn't retreat. It did something much worse. It engaged its magnetic harpoons and pulled itself flush against the iron patch. Vax felt the thud vibrate through the floorboards. The floorboards that were actually repurposed industrial radiator fins. "They're boarding," Vax clicked, his primary ocular sensors fluttering in terror. "Miller, they will send the Shrike units. Biological combatants designed for speed and lethality. They have never lost a boarding action." Miller didn't reach for a laser pistol. He reached for a heavy, grease-stained lever, marked with a hand-drawn skull and crossbones and permanent marker. "Strike units, huh? Do they like surprise pacing?" The airlock hissed. 3 elegant, multi-limbed Ketthari warriors blurred into the hallway. They were masterpieces of biological determinism, built for high-speed slaughter. But as they stepped into the patch, the ship didn't just stand there. "Patch," Miller drawled into the intercom. "Initiate the gravel pit protocol." The hallway floor, the one Miller warned was mostly suggestion, simply vanished. The Ketthari warriors didn't fall into space. They fell into a subdeck filled with active, unshielded industrial fans and high-tension bungee cords. The Space Orc architecture wasn't just a mess, it was a weaponized labyrinth. Vax watched the monitor. The elite warriors weren't being shot. They were being beaten by the ship itself. A heavy communication antenna swung like a club. A steam pipe accidentally burst, scalding them with 180 degrees Celsius vapor. "You aren't even fighting them," Vax whispered. "Fighting's for people with spare time," Miller said, leaning back as the ship's biomechanical interface hummed a satisfied note. "We just let the ship defend herself. She doesn't like strangers in her guts." Miller didn't look at the tactical display anymore. He didn't need to. Through the ports in his arm, he felt the ship's skeleton screaming under the gravitational stress. "Miller," Vax clicked, his voice barely a whisper. "The Dreadnought has engaged its phase shifter. Even your blackout bouquet cannot stop them now. They are going to pull us into their gravity well and collapse the hull." Miller wiped blood from his nose, a side effect of the ship's singularity core redlining. "Vax, you ever hear of a slingshot?" "No, not the fancy gravity assist kind. I mean a piece of wood and a rubber band." He began flipping toggles that were never meant to be flipped simultaneously. He was bypassing every safety protocol the Ketthari had ever programmed into the stolen parts of the engine. "If I cut the containment field on the boiler engine for exactly 0.4 seconds, Miller growled, his southern drawl turning into a rasping snarl of spite, "the singularity is going to try to expand. It'll kick us forward like a mule. But since we're tethered to that dreadnought, we aren't just leaving. We're taking a piece of them with us. That will kill us," Vax screamed. "Maybe," Miller said, his eyes narrowing as he gripped the manual override. "But it's sure as hell gonna kill him, and the patch never did like being told where to go." He slammed the lever forward. The ship didn't just accelerate, space-time seemed to tear. The iron patch lurched, the silver duct tape straining against the impossible G-forces. There was a sound like a tectonic plate snapping. The silence that followed was not the silence of space. It was the ringing of metal under stress and the wet, labored breathing of a man whose heart was struggling to remember its rhythm. Vax opened his primary ocular sensors. The viewport was cracked, the spider web of fractures held together by the iridescent Ketthari polymer Miller had scavenged years ago. Outside, the dreadnought was gone. In its place was a debris field of shimmering crystal and twisted steel, a graveyard created by a localized seizure in space-time. Miller was slumped in the chair. The copper wires in his arm were smoking, the scent of burnt insulation and singed flesh filling the small hub. He looked older, his face a map of deep-set wrinkles and gray stubble. He didn't move for a long time. Then, he reached out with a trembling hand and patted the rusted iron console. "Good girl," he wheezed. His southern drawl was a thin, raspy ghost of itself. "Told ya, she'd hold." Vax looked at the human. He looked at the silver duct tape and the bronze pipes in the bile slurry pulsing with a dim, dying light. He realized then that the Hegemony's perfect engineering was a fragile lie. It was built on the assumption that things would go right. Humans built on the certainty that things would go wrong. "You have destroyed a high dreadnought of the Spire," Vax said, his voice flat with shock. "They will send more. They will never stop." Miller finally looked up, a bloody grin splitting his weathered face. "Let 'em come. We got more tape, we got more spit, and the patch is just getting her second win." Beyond the glass, the iron patch drifted, a scarred, matte gray metallic hull against the cold dark, a testament to the terrifying beauty of human spite.